on the corner of Ashwood Lane and Reagan Parkway. It is a crosswalk for a lot of the students who are walking from home to Northrop School there on Reagan Parkway. I drive by there quite a bit as I go through town and whatever. And so so I have seen a lot of students walking down the street to go to the elementary school. And in my RCA, I did have a little bit of an error, and Councilman Shields gave me some additional insight, so I will share that with you. And I will read, for those of you who did not get a notification of this RCA, here's what I wrote. Many students who attend Northrop Elementary School on Reagan Parkway have to cross the street at Ashwood Lane while walking to school. There is no crossing guard at this intersection. That's where I made the mistake. I was informed that there actually is a crossing guard there during school hours to help the students cross the street, but only during school hours, okay? But the drivers are not always paying attention to the school signs on the road, which makes the crossing the road to get to the school dangerous for the students and their parents. And to help alleviate this potential danger, I'm asking City Council and the administration to install solar flashing signs at this intersection. And the signs that I am looking for are the same flashing solar signs that are on the square, where when one wants to cross the street in the square, they push the button on the post, and then the signs will flash. Thus, the drivers will see it, and then they will stop, and then the pedestrian can cross the street. So that is what I'm looking for. Back in 2010, and thank you to Patrick Patton for providing this information, they did do a study in regards to the pedestrian crossing. So Patrick, do you want to talk about that for a moment, please?
Sure. We looked at the same issue back in 2010 and actually had a consultant put a study together, and it was pretty much recommended that we do that back then. We never really got a swell of support for it, and that's why they haven't been there. I think the idea that the school crossing guard was there kind of alleviated people's concerns, but I would recommend moving forward with it.
Okay. I've had members of the community ask me about that. I know Councilman Simpson has as well, because people are concerned that drivers are not slowing down, they're not paying attention when they drive down Reagan Parkway, and certainly we don't want to have any injuries due to drivers not paying attention. Do either one of you have a comment about this?
Thank you, Ms. Hare. It's my neighborhood. I drive past there 2-3 times a day. Easily, I can see where non-school hours this could be beneficial too, especially for the people who live in the apartments and they want to avail themselves to the Reagan Park, or getting across the street to go up to do some shopping and the like. I think it's a good thing. It's not just for school children, but for everybody.
Thank you. Jessica?
Thank you. It is a long stretch of road with no place to cross, so I think that this is a good idea to put something in place regardless of whether you're gearing it towards the school children, the public, whoever. There does need to be a safe place to spot on that long, or cross on that long stretch of road. I mean, I drive there at night carefully, always at the speed limit, of course, and I'm always afraid of deer. So if I'm afraid of deer, heaven forbid I would, hit a child. So
Right.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So the additional information that Mr. Patton submitted was this, and I'll read this paragraph from the email. In 2020, the city installed double flashing lights for approximately $7,000 each. They had issued a PO for the same signs on East Union Street, which is between the school business office and the high school, right where the tennis courts are. So they are currently in the process of putting those lights there. The cost was a little bit less at $6,600 each, but asking for what the potential cost would be for those signs there at Ashwood Lane and Reagan Parkway. We're estimating it would be about $15,000 for that location. And then also in conversation with Mr. Patton, there's also an idea of putting a crosswalk, or these same signs at AI Route there on West Sturbridge, because there's also a lot of kids walking in that neighborhood to cross West Sturbridge to get to AI Route. So currently, though, this RCA is to put the solar signs at Ashwood Lane and Reagan Parkway. I do see some people who are here today about this issue. Would any of you care to make a comment about the crosswalks in favor or against? There's a podium back there if you want to use that,
Do you want to hand him maybe your microphone?
or one of those microphones there by Nino, right here.
You've done a great job summarizing. The only thing I would add is that I walk my kids to Eliza Northrop, and in talking with the crossing guards that are there, they have expressed concerns for their own safety. So they would be using this as a tool
As well.
for their own duty time. They have a handheld sign, but they would also, I'm sure, make use of the button and the flashing lights. Because they've expressed concern, saying like, hey, I was
Right,
standing in the street and this car was not going to stop.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, thank you.
Sir, for the record, if you could put your name and address on the record for Kathy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can just state it, yeah.
Todd Bauer, 1035 Ashwood Lane.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment about the solar signs? Yes, Mr. Shields. Okay, thank you.
Currently, there's 37 students that are in the apartments that cross over to Northrop. 7 of those are preschool, so they are bused, but
Okay.
they will eventually become, the busing is only for preschool from the apartments. This will not change our crossing guard. We did talk about it at schools. We made a commitment to the neighborhoods, both the apartments and Forest Meadows, when that building was open almost 13 years ago, that we would provide a crossing guard there. So we're not going to change that just because there's flashing lights. I've had a few people ask if that was going to go away, but no, we made that commitment from day one of that building.
Okay,
The only thing I want to caution everybody about, I know Jess and I sit on the county planning commission. There is a very large development coming further down Reagan, and one of the main entrances is on Reagan Parkway, almost across from Northrop Elementary. And what we learned many years ago when we first put Northrop in, people will not walk up to a corner, they cross right where it's most convenient to cross. So just know, on the plans from the county, which is Medina Township on that side of the road, but there is an entrance to one of their housing developments, and that new housing development that's on the Bohattie property. So we might be addressing this in the next couple of years again too, because people will not walk back. The reason we did at Ashwood is because it was people from the apartments didn't want to walk up to Jefferson and cross at the end of the block. So that's kind of how we established the mid-block crosswalk.
okay.
So just know there's more coming there. I know that's been approved. Just that was a meeting I sat in when you weren't there, but there is an entrance to that big 244 houses that are going to come on that property that have been approved. That is almost more lined up with Northrop Elementary School's driveway.
Ms. Hare?
Yes.
I don't know, Jim or Jess, with regard to that property, can the developer be required to put some sort of crossing in somewhere near the school in conjunction with that, so that it's not a city headache?
When we were at the meeting, they did mention that when the portion, the driveway that comes out onto Reagan, they would have to involve the city, Pat?
Yes, we'd have to issue the permit to, the curb cut permit, basically.
Okay. So I just kind of wanted to get it on the radar there we don't want to forget about that, because I know what will happen if that's a new development and there's 244 houses in there, they'll cut through there and start crossing right there by Northrop, and that's even a busier stretch because you have so many people pulling in and out of the school building each day to it. Start and the end of the school day.
Okay, thank you for that information. Mayor Hanwell?
Jim or Jess, if either of you know, when the county does that development, is there a requirement they're gonna put sidewalks on that side of or that side of Reagan, because there are not now, from the apartments through Reagan Parkway, there's nothing on the north side. And the reason I'm asking the question is if that's a more conducive place and the children from the apartments could come down to that location and then have the crossing and the signage at one location versus a block apart from one another, that would seem to make the most sense, both from a cost perspective as well as safe crossing, because we're not going to have I can't speak for the schools, I don't know that you're going to want a second guard at that new location as well. So the protection of the guard and the flashing lights, if we could figure out if that's a possibility to do it down there closer to the schools, we just have to be able to safely get the children from the apartments along the north side with a sidewalk.
As Mr. Shields stated, I was not in attendance at that meeting, so I did not see the final site plan. I don't even think that they've been approved for where they're putting sidewalks or anything like that. It's very preliminary, but if that's something that needs to be considered, I'm sure we could bring that up.
Yeah, it was more conceptual at this point of how it was all going to lay out, but I just remember them mentioning to the developer that when they come out onto Reagan, they're going to have to get the city involved because there's just a very slight strip of land there, I think, Pat, that.
Yeah, and if I saw those plans, I don't think the entire development can get through. I think it's like an isolated, one of the phases, which might be 20, 30, 40 units. I'll have to double check
You're right,
that.
it was a townhouse, but people will take the easiest path to get over to school, so if you have all those houses over there behind that, I didn't know if people would start cutting through that way, so. And I don't know, could these lights be moved if we start at one spot and then we?
Yeah, you'd have the cost of the foundation, because they do have foundations, that you'd have to put in new foundations, but the actual lights themselves, sure, they can be, they're solar, so they're not even.
Because we don't have any curb
conduit.
cuts to do at this location, because we already have those in.
No,
so there's-
we'd have to put curb ramps and curb cuts in if we established a different crossing point.
And maybe at that point, we can ask the developer across the street to do that at that point.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that, because they're not building in the city. If they were building in the city, we have all kinds of control. I don't know if our curb cut permit, how much we can control things that need to, we'll have to look at it, I guess.
So my question then to this development, when is the soonest they're going to start building?
They've got approval now, so, I mean, I
So,
guess
but
it's
we're
all
look-
depending on the market and which phase. It is several
Yeah.
phases, but
Okay,
it
so
was
we-
244 homes that were.
It's going to be a
Down the road
while.
a little
It's
bit,
going to be a
yeah.
while. So
Yeah.
this is something that we can do in the immediate future versus waiting to see what all of that is going to develop into.
Yes, I just didn't want people to, just to remember this as we get further down there, that I have a feeling there'll be kids who will cross down closer from that development too.
Okay.
Because it does butt up to the Forest Meadows. It's that whole stretch. The Forest Meadows is in Medina, but everything behind that, across from Northrop, that's Medina Township, which is the Bohattie property
Right.
that's been sold and is going to be developed.
Okay.
We have not, they just left that front part of the fort, you talking about the commercial part of things, or? Oh, yeah, they did not talk at all. They were just bringing a conceptual site plan to be approved, so.
This is just like approving plats and stubs and sewer lines. It's very rudimentary what we
Okay.
see.
Okay, so we're looking at a while down the road
Yeah.
for this. Okay,
But it's farther along. I mean, they're at the stage where they have it planned out.
yeah.
They had all the development planned out.
I would not let that prevent you from putting
Right.
this in place,
Right.
but just be aware that, you know,
It's
like
down
anything
the road.
else, we might have to relocate it, we might have to change the plan, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's anything that would concern what you're doing right now.
Okay,
I just didn't want to sit here knowing that Jess and I sit on that and we know it's
Yeah.
coming and not
Okay.
mention it here.
I appreciate that information. Mayor Hanwell, do you have any other comments in regards to this?
No, if council's good, the administration's good.
Okay, all right. Any other comments? Anyone? Okay, do you want to, yes, ma'am.
Not about this issue, but sidewalks in general. Are we up to that point?
Are we, well, let's,
I mean, are
let's,
we past the Bohattie issue in the,
no, because we have to vote on this
That's the
particular
only
issue.
issue on the agenda.
Yeah, yeah.
just push the button?
Okay, so let's take a vote on this issue to move it to the Finance Committee.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion to move this on to finance.
This being crossing signs on West Sturbridge and East Reagan?
Correct.
Okay, second.
No, not West Sturbridge, on,
No,
on
West Ashwood Lane and Reagan
Park-
Parkway. I even
Just
said
that one?
correct.
Okay,
Yes, the top one.
Sorry,
Alright.
yes.
Okay.
okay.
Do we have a second?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Dissent? Okay, this passes, and it will go forth to the Finance Committee of Council. Thank you. I don't, I'll open up the floor to take a question that you may have in regards to sidewalks. Okay,
My name is Linda Frost, and I live at 523 North Broadway Street. And I'm part of Founder's Way North Historic District. And we've talked about this before as far as the sidewalks. What are the plans this year for improving, marking sidewalks that need to be replaced? Do you have a plan?
well, Mr. Patton has a program that they review the sidewalks every year. Mr. Patton, would you like to talk on this, please?
Sure. We do a sidewalk program every other year, and what we do is target an area around town. I think we've been through 3 of them, and this year will be our 4th. I believe that's correct. Where we inspect those sidewalks. It is the homeowner's responsibility to maintain and pay for any kind of sidewalk repair. So if the sidewalk's determined to be out of spec, our ordinances have some very specific limits on, you know, how much it can be cracked, how much a tripping hazard, that sort of thing. Then we notify the homeowner, they have to, a certain number of days to repair it. If they don't repair it, then the city will use a contractor, go in and fix it, and bill the property owner. I don't know for sure where our target area is this year. I can certainly let you know, but if there's a concern about a specific tripping hazard, we can remedy that immediately. Usually we do that with, we call it cold patch, it's like asphalt, so it's not a tripping hazard. That doesn't have to wait for the program, and that could be anywhere in the city. So if you have an address or anything you'd like us to check, we can certainly do that.
I do,
Okay.
And we have photos also. Could you let us know what your target area is?
Certainly, yes.
Okay. I'm going to leave these photos with you and the addresses. There's no sense going over that.
Okay.
And you have come through our neighborhood. We have notified you in the past of certain areas, and you have cold patched them, and that does really help.
Okay, good.
We have a lot of dog walkers, and there are elderly.
Right.
And Carla here, she's just about fallen down a couple times. We had a neighbor on Union Street fall and end up in the road.
Wow.
We have an issue with Homestead on the south side of Homestead, East Homestead, where I believe the sidewalks were put in when the road was constructed, and they've sunk towards the street. There's like an 8-inch drop. It's very difficult to walk on. Also on Jefferson Street. and then this section on Union Street from Broadway to Court. Okay.
Reggie, if I could.
Yes.
I've asked Patrick whether this is in the zone that's due for review or not, because of the number of schools that we have there in this neighborhood, to make sure we address it this summer, whether it's in the target zone or not, and we'll get it squared away.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to remind the public that if you come across something like that that you think is dangerous, don't hesitate to reach out to your local council person, or if you want to send an email to me, and I will reach out to the administration. I will say our administration is very, very good at responding rapidly to these kind of situations. For example, I had a constituent tell me about a big pothole in front of their house, and as soon as I got that text, I actually got a text, I reached out to Nino, and within a couple hours they were there and they filled that out. So if you see something in your neighborhood that's dangerous, please reach out to us and we can address it. Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I just want to mention at the intersection of Union and Broadway where we live, Skip Barron. I wasn't planning on talking, but you reminded me of something. Skip Barron, 536 North Broadway Street, and I'm also in Founder's Way North. I've just noticed on the corner, in the street, there's a place where it looks like the concrete is sinking. There's a hole about this big that's kind of going down more and more. I don't know, it's been, yeah, right on the, if you're coming north on Broadway, on the right-hand side, just before you get to the intersection, there's a, looks like a sinking piece of concrete, which I try to avoid. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and I see Nino diligently writing, so he's going to have his department check into it so that can be resolved for safety issue. Okay. So if there's no other issues, then I'm going to adjourn this Streets and Sidewalks Committee. Thank you.